So they were there and they were monitoring a very heavily fenced off area to one side of the stadium. And what was happening in that stadium, in that fenced off area of the stadium, when people went there, even the police that had cordoned off this area were terrified of what was happening in there. And what was happening in there is about 300 people were savaging each other to the point of death. So it was worse than MMA cage fighting. It was worse than anything you've ever seen. The people in that cordoned off area had taken leave of all mortal human normal senses. They were past the place where you could say, you guys, stop, where you could speak on a bullhorn and say, break it up, where you could spray them with water. They had gone past that point. They were so savage that as they were fighting in there, a pool of blood formed on the cement of the place that they had been locked in, and the pool of blood was coming out in a wash. It was coming out behind the chain link fence where these people were contained. And then the dream skipped forward again. God was skipping the dream forward to sort of show me what had happened in the back, because the area of the dream where I woke up was suddenly, the game had been canceled. So the game had been canceled and people were running away from the stadium. They weren't leaving in any kind of, oh, I'm so disappointed. No, the game had been canceled and people were fleeing the scene. And then God was sort of skipping it to show me this is how the situation devolved. So he skipped it once and I found myself standing and seeing these 3 different types of cops, and I saw the people fighting in there. And I'm telling you right now that it was a fearful sight. I'm telling you right now that terror entered my heart, because what I was looking at was one of those, we will do this until no man remains standing. The people were using teeth. They were using their hands. They were using everything that a person can use. And as a result, little bits of human flesh were coming out, were flying in there. Little bits of human flesh were being plucked out by other people. They were savaging each other to death. That is how it was. So it skipped again, and then I saw how this situation started. So I've now found myself sitting back in the seats, and the game was going on. And then what happened was, it was like a kind of fever began to break out. I'm not talking about the fever where you feel hot. It's more like a feverish type of mood. People began to lose their temper like this in the stands. So it would be one conversation here, and the conversation would get heated, but then instead of the conversation just being a shouting match that eventually dies down or people break it up, no, it would turn into a violent altercation. And then the local cops, the guys, the security guards, they were the first group. They would come and try to get those people, and then they would put them in that detention center. So that detention center was basically just the lowest level of a parking garage. There was parking garage, maybe 2 or 3 levels, and then the bottom level, you don't park cars there. Only the VIPs get to put their vehicles there, and that is why there was a chain link fence around it. VIP cars were parked there on the lowest level behind this chain link fence. So they took 1 or 2 offenders and they put them there, and the game continued. This is not something that can disrupt an entire stadium. But then, almost as if on a switch, fights began breaking out all over the stadium. First 5 fights and 10 fights and then 15. And I'm not talking about the kind of fight where other people can pull you apart. Any people who went to try and break up those fights, the people fighting turned on them and rained such savage blows on them that those people were then forced to protect themselves from people who were acting extremely dangerously, extremely violent and confrontational. And so 5 turned into 10, and 10 into 30, and then 30 into 50, and before you know it, it was 100 fights, and then it was 300 around the stadium, and as a result, the game had to be canceled because there was just too much disruption. And these 300 or 400 people were put in that holding area, and all that they were thinking is, we now need to book all these people, but before those people can be booked, all of them changed, and they began to savage and kill one another. And I remember when I was standing there, I was frozen watching them as they were tearing each other until small pieces of flesh were stuck on their hands, their clothes, their faces, and their shoes, and the cement parking floor that was becoming washed with blood. And in the dream, I felt a horrible cold feeling filled my bones, and only one thought was in my mind: these people have turned. These people have changed. They are no longer people. They must have taken the pill. And so as I was standing there watching this, other people were then coming, and once they saw people with faces torn and everything like that, those of you who have been on this channel long enough, you remember the dream that was removed from this channel that is exactly like this, but I saw it taking place in the nation of America. I saw it happening in New York City, and God said that this is what people who have taken vaccines are. And I said that it was a bright and sunny day, and I had stepped out of my home, and it happened in Manhattan. I was there, and the speed with which people changed in that dream, there was absolutely nothing that I could do to protect myself. I was literally standing there, and all I kept saying in my heart is, Jesus, save me. Jesus, cover me. Jesus, protect me. I saw those people in Manhattan. Some of them were running on all fours. You're looking at me, I'm looking at you. These are the dreams that God gave me when he was warning people and warning people and warning people. Do all at once, and not only that, they automatically knew who was not vaccinated. So it's not as if they turned and they began to fight each other as these people did who took the pill. They knew who the unvaccinated were, and they searched after them and began to hurt people. And when I say hurt people, I'm not talking about choking. I'm literally talking about a person biting your cheek and tearing your cheek off with their teeth. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about inhumane, unseen before savagery that is not typical to the human being. So these people were not behaving like angry people. Angry people don't lunge for your cheek. They were behaving like wild animals.